within each religious or ideological communities and between religious or ideological communities. The third principle, each participant must come to the dialogue with complete honesty and sincerity. The fourth one, in interreligious and inter-ideological dialogue, we must not compare our ideals with our partner's practice. The fifth one, faith, each faith participants must define within each religious. Conversely, ideological in the dialogue setting, you were mentioning a while ago that you like the shape of circle. The one interpreted must be able to recognize herself in the interpretation. The sixth, each participant must come to the dialogue with no hard and fast assumptions as to where the points of disagreement are. Seventh, dialogue can take place only between equals. So in the Philippine setting, so we talk about the tribe people and some people of other living faith. You know, the seventh principle is dialogue can take place only on the basis of mutual trust. And ninth, persons entering into interreligious, inter-ideological dialogue must be at least minimally self-critical of both themselves and their own religious or ideological traditions. And the last, the 10th one, each participant eventually must attempt to experience the partner's religion or ideology from within. Interreligious dialogue operates in the three areas: the practical, where we collaborate to help humanity; the cognitive, where we seek understanding and truth; and the spiritual, where we attempt to experience the partner's religion from within. Interreligious dialogue, my dear friends, is a challenging process by which adherents of differing religious traditions encounter each other in order to break down the walls of division that stand at the center of most tensions and conflicts. The objective of the interreligious dialogue is peace. I would like to repeat that one. The objective of the interreligious dialogue is peace. Interreligious dialogue has many phases. You know, theologians can write papers, publish in journals, and convene to discuss the finer theological issues related to interreligious dialogue. And there are multitude of theological issues to mention.
Recording in progress.
Perhaps members of one faith tradition can join with members of another religion to improve a neighborhood. What is most crucial in any such encounter is that the participants lay aside attempts to evangelize or even to convert, which is always accompanied by an attitude of exclusive superiority. A commitment to openness is deeply difficult. For example, in Christianity, evangelizing and converting others to that faith system is a central tenet that is rooted in the Christian scriptures. Christians generally believe that one must be saved and that salvation is only possible in Christianity. On the other hand, Muslims believe that God is the creator of all things and that God is all powerful and all knowing. God has no offspring, no race, no gender, no body, and is unaffected by the characteristic of human life. These differing cosmologies can be obstacles that cannot be overcome or opportunities for release from enslaving assumptions. The following are some guidelines for effective interreligious dialogue. First, participants in interreligious dialogue cannot use the encounter as opportunities to defend their own characteristics of human life. Neither is interreligious dialogue a means to defend religion in general. Or opportunities. Third, there is a risk of conversion assumptions. Participants may find themselves transformed by the interfaith encounter. The fourth one, Dialogue participants must reveal the beliefs that they hold closest and that define their religious tradition. Interreligious dialogue is not philosophical, theological, or intellectual exercise. It is an expression of the participants' lived faith lives. Therefore, interfaith encounters form communities of awareness. Pope Francis, as the head of the Catholic Church, fosters a spirit of dialogue that is held important in the whole of Catholic religion, tradition. He promotes a dialogue based on the teachings and practices clearly defined in the encyclical, the Nostra Aetate, literally means in our time. It is the declaration and the relation of the church with non-Christian religions. This was proclaimed by Saint Pope Paul VI in October of 1965. It is the shortest of the 16 final documents of the Second Vatican Council and the first in Catholic history to focus on the relationship that Catholics have with the Jews. It is also considered monumental declaration in describing the church's positive relationship with the Muslims. Nostra Aetate gives us three fundamental reasons why dialogue is essential in the life of the church. First, first is the conviction that we all belong to one human family, a principle widely shared by religions all over the world. Dialogue is imperative in understanding the various spiritual and faith traditions. We must seek the common ground of shared values among diverse faiths to show that despite diversity, we are one human family with the same fundamental aspirations for mutual respect, for acceptance, and for living in peace. The second reason, we are all gifted with a sense of spirituality. Every human being has a spiritual sense, a sense of the divine, expressed in different ways according to different faith traditions. Even non believers are gifted with this sense as evidenced by recent advances in neural and cognitive science, which support the idea that the spiritual or the sacred is fundamental to human experience and even flourishing. Spirituality is the entry point of dialogue, and through interreligious dialogue, we could share stories on how our experiences on divine love, our spirituality, promotes attitudes that move us to action towards the attainment of the shared values such as justice and lasting peace. The third reason for interreligious dialogue is based on the universal principle that we have a shared responsibility for the common good. Pope Francis believes that our capacity to actually work together compassionately for the common good can only through compassion and mercy and the ability to empathize with one another, especially those who are in need. So, my dear friends, like peace educators, we ask ourselves, what have we done for the hungry and the poor, for the refugees and those internally displaced by conflict? What have we done for peace in the world, even in our own local communities? For Mother Earth, our common home. We can see that there are plenty of activities where believers of different faiths, Muslims, the Christians, and of course the traditional humanists, the cosmic faith believer among the indigenous peoples, can work together towards common goals and promote a different way of life and make a positive change in this world. Intercultural dialogue, on the other hand, occurs when members of different cultural groups who hold conflicting opinions and assumptions speak to one another in acknowledgement of those differences. I guess in your peace education, classes, and you have your own lesson plans, you probably have known that there are about 18 to 21 ethno-linguistic groups among the indigenous peoples and even among the Moro groups. Cultural diversity is now an integral part of every society. Behind the promotion of intercultural dialogue is a drive to make this diversity a source of mutual enrichment, understanding, reconciliation, and even tolerance. Easier than a definition is a description of the conditions. This is what we call the enabling factors that characterize a true, meaningful intercultural dialogue. Based on the existing experience, one can propose 6 crucial conditions that must be fulfilled from the very outset or achieved during the process in dialoguing. 1, equal dignity of all participants. 2, voluntary engagement in dialogue. 3, a mindset on both sides characterized by openness, curiosity, and commitment, and the absence of a desire to win the dialogue. 4, a readiness to look at both cultural similarities and differences. 5, a minimum degree of knowledge about the distinguishing features of one's own and the other culture. And 6, the ability to find a common language for understanding and respecting cultural differences. Since peace is the goal of interreligious and intercultural dialogue, the process must be peaceful. It is important to realize that peace is not easily achieved and sustained. The process may be peaceful, and it is not as easy as we imagine. Peace does not occur in a day. There are obstacles as intrepid travelers struggle up the path to heights where the human spirit may soar. The role of education and having you as educators in promoting an open approach to others is key understanding contemporary forms of violence and to educating young generations to be more open to the cultural diversity that will structure their local communities. Teachers and instructors are in an ideal position to promote the benefits of cultural diversity and interreligious dialogue by teaching new generations about tolerance, dialogue, and accepting others for social cohesiveness. Social cohesion, my dear friends, involves building shared values and communities of interpretation, reducing disparities in wealth and income, and generally enabling people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. The Bishops' Ulama Conference, earlier known as the Bishops' Ulama Forum, was formed in November 1996 in the Philippines. It brings together religious leaders of Muslim and Christian communities from all over Mindanao. It includes bishops of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, the members of the Ulama League of the Philippines, and the bishops of the National Council of Churches of the Philippines. At this time, I would like to share you the video of the Bishops Ulama Conference and what they have done when they started in 1996 and maybe up to the 2016 and up to now. So let us, I'm going to share my screen, Sandy, for everybody. This is just a 17-minute video documentary of the Bishops Ulama Conference for us to know how things have been so far in the interreligious and intercultural dialogue.
Milestones in retrospect of the Bishops' Ulama Conference. In March of 1996, it was announced that the Philippine government, under the presidency of Fidel V. Ramos, was finalizing a peace agreement with the Moro National Liberation Front under Chairman Noor Miswari. The formal signing was scheduled for September 1, 1996. In planning the implementation of the peace accord, it was felt advisable and necessary to enlist the help of the religious leaders of Mindanao, that is, those professing the Christian and Islamic faiths. So, on 16 July 1996, Archbishop Fernando Capalla, Archbishop of Davao, and then Chair of the Episcopal Commission for Interreligious Dialogue, and Dr. Maid Mutilan, President of the Ulama League of the Philippines, met at the office of the President of the Ateneo de Manila University in Quezon City. They were accompanied by several ulama, 2 Catholic bishops and a Catholic priest, and 3 advisors of President Ramos. It was agreed that an organization of Christian and Muslim religious leaders was to be established in Mindanao. On September 1, 1996, the peace agreement was officially signed in Malacanang Palace by Chairman Noor Miswari for the MNLF and by Ambassador Manuel Yan for the Philippine government, in the presence of President Ramos, foreign ambassadors, and religious leaders in the Philippines. 3 months later, on November 29, 1996, the Bishops' Ulama Conference, or BUC, was established and inaugurated at the Sacred Heart Center in Cebu City in the presence of His Eminence Ricardo Cardinal Vidal, the officials of the National Secretariat for Social Action, Justice and Peace of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, and of the staff of the Catholic Relief Services of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. The original membership of the Bishops' Ulama Conference numbered 21 Catholic bishops, 26 Muslim ulama, and later on, they were joined by 18 Protestant bishops and pastors. Archbishop Capalla and Dr. Mutilan were elected conveners. Later, the group acquired legal identity when the Securities and Exchange Commission approved its constitution and bylaws. Its governing board is now known as the Tripartite Commission, composed of 4 members for each sector, totaling 12 in all. A secretariat based at the Elena Tower Inn in Iligan City served as the coordinating body of the activities of the conference. For the past 10 years, the conference has been holding its General Assembly every 3 months. Aside from the Catholic Relief Services, its activities then have been supported by the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, or OPAP, from the beginning until the year 2005. In 2006, the Asia Foundation and the Catholic Relief Services have shouldered the financial requirements of the major activities of the conference. As a loose organization of religious leaders, the main objectives of the Bishops' Ulama Conference is to promote the correct understanding of the Christian and Islamic faiths, which teach and impart common moral and spiritual values that are considered indispensable elements of justice and peace, as well as of progress and development. Underpinning all these is the value of respectful and friendly dialogue, which, however long and tedious, is the only human and humane way of resolving conflicts. This dialogue has underpinned the following events, which are considered significant milestones during the 10 years existence of the Bishops' Ulama Conference. The annual celebration throughout the region of Mindanao of the Mindanao Week of Peace, involving religious, civic, government and non-governmental sectors, and officially endorsed by presidential proclamations of Presidents Estrada and Macapagal Arroyo. The number of peace groups and initiatives has been increasing since 1999. The Tripartite Youth Peace Camp, a biannual event which gathers 200 to 300 Muslim, Christian and Lumad youth for a 5-day camp activities, which resulted in forging deep friendships among the youth leaders of the region. A BUC assembly was held for the first time, where wives and children of the Protestant bishops and Muslim ulama spent 3 days discussing how the families could support the peace activities of the conference. A significant symposium was held on Maryam in the Quran and Mary in the Bible, which emphasized significant consensus on the group's knowledge and understanding of the Mother of Jesus Christ as taught by the respective Holy Book, was successfully held in Cagayan de Oro on August 29, 2001 during the 16th BUC General Assembly. The historic gathering of the First Asian Bishops' Ulama Conference, attended by Christian and Muslim delegating countries. The event was held at the Western Philippine Plaza Hotel in Manila and graced by Her Excellency President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. One of its main resolutions was to extend the network of the Bishops' Ulama Conference to other Asian countries. The 28th General Assembly, which discussed this theme, Women and Youth, Partners in Peacebuilding, became the first time in 9 years that the BUC exchanged doctrinal issues and came out surprisingly with a unanimous agreement on important teachings of both Christianity and Islam on the same topic. What facilitated the consensus was the atmosphere of trust that had been established among the members of the conference. This year's most significant event, the Mindanao Bishops Ulama Network, or IMBUN, last August 15 to 16 in General Santos City, Sarangani Province, an implementation of the resolution of the First Asian Bishops Ulama Conference. 3 Indonesian ulama, 3 Catholic bishops, and 2 Protestant leaders responded to our invitation. They came from prestigious organizations like the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Indonesia, the Muhammadiyah Islamiyah, and the Christian Conference of Asia Indonesia chapter. Areas of collaboration between the two countries were identified. Final approval of the network is expected soon. They are sending 6 Indonesian youth to attend our tripartite youth peace camp next month in Marawi City. The Bishops' Ulama Conference became finally the most credible peace and dialogue organization in Mindanao when, at the request of the more Islamic Liberation Front's peace panel, the conveners called to a peace consultation all Mindanao leaders last 9 to 10 October 2006 at the Manday Hotel in Davao City. The purpose was to bring back to the negotiating table the two panels in order to resume the peace talks which were stalled on the issue of ancestral domain. Now, on the international recognition gained by the conference. The conference has received international recognition through the following events. In September 2003, Pope John Paul II, talking to several Filipino bishops from Luzon and Mindanao, cited the BUC as a group that can implement the 2003 Assisi Decalogue for Peace, which he also had sent to heads of state worldwide. At the United Nations organizations in New York, the Philippine ambassador and later President Loren Macapagal Arroyo herself and Speaker Jose de Venecia in 2005 took turns in citing the Bishops' Ulama Conference together with the Peace Weavers and Mindanao Caucus as models of interfaith dialogue and collaboration that could be replicated in other countries of the world. The World Conference on Religion and Peace, based in New York, elected the BUC co-convener Archbishop Kapalia as one of its honorary presidents. The Multi-Faith Center of Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia, elected Archbishop Kapalia as members of its advisory committee. The World Islamical Society of Libya invited the 3 BUC conveners to Tripoli in 2003 to attend the September Interfaith Assembly, where Archbishop Kapalia was assigned as one of its moderators. The Manila-based Australian Embassy, co-sponsored with the Bishops' Ulama Conference and Interfaith Dialogue for Peace in June of 2005. The Vatican-based Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, in collaboration with the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences, presented the Bishops' Ulama Conference in July 2006 at the Asian Seminar on Ecumenism as one approach to Christian unity through ecumenical dialogue. Although not quantifiable in terms of depth, the most important and priceless results of the interreligious dialogue and collaboration promoted by the conference for the past 10 years was the enduring friendship and trusting relationships among the bishops and the ulama. This friendship was the end product of the following observable and quantifiable activities of the dialogue process. It was observed that there was more interest on genuine Islam on the part of the Christians and on genuine Christianity on the part of the Muslims in Mindanao. Also observed was more tolerance and understanding from both groups in Mindanao. The dialogues were brought down to the level of the Christian and Muslim school administrators, professors, teachers, and staff in the region. Some universities and colleges in Mindanao, especially the Notre Dame University in Cotabato City, are now offering peace education through dialogue. The youth leaders, both in and out of school, are now involved in the peace process through interreligious dialogues or interfaith dialogue around the region. And finally, success stories of reconciliation through repentance and forgiveness among Muslims and between Christians and Muslims were reported and documented. It can be said that the Bishops' Ulama Conference believe and are deeply convinced that the only way to bring about lasting peace and justice in Mindanao is through the healing of the psychological wounds of war and conflict. This healing, which is based on the Quranic and biblical teachings and confirmed by some success stories, can only be effected through repentance and forgiveness, an indispensable element in reconciliation and an important aspect of the process of addressing the demands of social justice. In the words of the late Pope John Paul II, and I quote, "There is no peace without justice, no justice without forgiveness." This confirms the prophetic statement of the Anglican Archbishop of South Africa and a Nobel Prize awardee, Desmond Tutu, who said, and I quote, "There is no future for our country without forgiveness." The Bishops' Ulama Conference is committed to pursue the processes leading to this indispensable element of an enduring peace in this region of Mindanao.
Yes, before I will continue the last part of my sharing, my dear friends, can I see a word from each one of you on how are you? You can use the chat box. May I know, is everyone still very much okay out there wherever you are? Hello? Buhay pa ba? So, I see heart from MSU Maguindanao. Yeah. So thank you very much. And thank you for watching the video documentary of the Bishops Ulama Conference where I serve as, since 2007. My dear friends, despite the ups and downs of a protracted peace process, as documented by Archbishop Antonio Ledesma, the Bishops Ulama Conference has been able to send a steadfast message to all, whether peace doves or war hawks, that the major Christian and Muslim leaders of Mindanao are really for peace. Gradually, wider circles of dialogue at the lower levels are being formed, just like, for example, among the parish priests, the imams, and the pastors. The culture of peace workshops have also been conducted among grassroots communities. Several bishops and ulama in their own localities have been active in monitoring ceasefire agreements and promoting the peace process. There are also suggestions for the bishops' ulama participants to be more proactively involved in development efforts, principally by facilitating consultations among local communities. From a global perspective, the series of dialogue and joint activities among Muslim, ulama, and Christian bishops in Mindanao may be unprecedented anywhere else in the world. This ongoing experience affirms that instead of being sources of conflict, authentic religious traditions can be harnessed as solid foundations for peace. I would like to make an emphasis on one of the fruits of the Bishops' Ulama Conference, the birth of the Mindanao Tripartite Youth Corps. This is also known as the Youth Desk of the Bishops' Ulama Conference. It was co-founded in 2004 by a group of youth leaders, including myself. We wanted to create a path to peace in the spirit of dialogue. The rise of such passion has grown for 16 years, going 17 years for this year. If not because of that, I won't be able to join you now. The journey is still on. We are always inspired from the works of our church and community leaders. We intend to keep our fire burning and hopefully pass on the flame to much younger generations. I hope you would continue to accept the challenge in influencing our youth and be part of the legacy of the youth to always advance the cause of peace through interreligious and intercultural dialogue. I understand that we are confronted with the new approach of learning, our country suddenly adjusting to a new reality that was quite unimaginable in the beginning of last year. COVID-19 has changed every aspect of our lives. Most of us, if not all, have been affected, and the pandemic has impacted our educational system. The crisis we face now offers an important reflection for education leaders to question and explore new approaches for delivering quality education to our learners. Take the challenge from now on, not just because you are called and don't have a choice at all, because this is about work and employment, but because we do not have reasons to be selfish at all, especially at this time. Our students need kindness and mindfulness. Our students, especially in peace education classes, need to root from our personal commitment to embrace the spirit of dialogue wherever the tides of life lead them. I thought this might help you in the continuance of your teaching learning activities. You can even Google this one. There is a material that is called AIR Activities to Implement Dialogue. This is developed by Rebecca Katz-Mays. The acronym AIR stands for Appreciative Statements, I Statements, and Reflective Statements. They are simple, too frequently neglected, but powerful statements that greatly facilitate dialogue. On appreciative statements, try to make your first statement to a dialogue partner be one in which you affirm something in his or her position. For example, I really agree with you when you say, this is a concretization of the common sense principle. Start with what you agree on to establish a common basis and initial trust. Then move toward what you think you don't agree on to learn whether you in fact disagree, which is less frequently the case than is often imagined. And if so, what to do about it. This is a concrete way to spell out in practice the principle 8 as mentioned. Approach first those issues most likely to provide common ground, thereby establishing human trust. On I statements, especially when approaching a topic concerning which a variety of positions is likely, begin your position by saying, I am convinced that, I think that are the like. That way you can carefully, even powerfully, state your position without blocking the dialogue even before it begins, which is likely to happen with the statements like, here is the truth. No one can disagree that. Take it or leave it. Those blocks or further dialogue. Whereas making the same claim in the I form, I think the following for these reasons not only leaves open the dialogue, but even invites it. Lastly, on reflective statement. Since dialogue means literally from the Greek word dia and logos, meaning thinking or talking across together, we want to be sure that not only do we spell out clearly our ideas, but we likewise want to be certain that we hear or understand our partner's ideas correctly. Both halves of the structure of dialogue are essential. Again, we too often misunderstand what our dialogue partner is saying and hence are not talking with, but past each other. A simple and extremely effective remedy is, as is clearly articulated above in principle number 5, the one interpreted must be able to recognize herself in the interpretation. Simply frequently say something like, I understand you to be saying this. Am I understanding you correctly? Let me share to you in closing the words from our religious and tribal leaders during their gathering last June 12 to 14, 2017, barely 2 months after the Marawi siege. It took place in Cagayan de Oro for the multi-sectoral peace conference convened by the Bishops' Ulama Conference. They said, we recognize that peace education is one best antidote to violent extremism. In this regard, we would like to emphasize the key role of the madrasa system. I believe even in mainstream educational system, in raising up Muslims, also Christians, and other people of living faith that shun violent extremism. If given sufficient policy and material support, the schools are potent instruments for combating the social disease that resulted, among others, into the Marawi siege. Apart from the religious formation, the youth also need to be empowered and effectively engaged in crafting the future of their communities. May the force be with you all. Daghang salamat ug kalinaw kanatong tanan.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jana, for sharing the principles and significance of interreligious dialogue. It's imperative, an eye-opener. No? So we believe that when people of different religious and cultural background meet each other, they gain new perspective in life or recall forgotten values. And I believe that most faith acknowledge that every part of life is sacred and that reverence should be shown to all people and to the whole natural world. So to our participants, please reserve your questions for Ms. Jana during the open forum. Use our chat box or Facebook comment section to send your questions, your comments and queries, especially on the topics for the open forum. And then kindly indicate, if possible, the topic and the speaker you would like to address your question. So this morning, we will again listen and learn about peace concepts in Islam from the mother of nine, a businesswoman, an Islamic preacher, and motivational speaker from Marawi City. Ladies and gentlemen, our second speaker, Ms. Aleema Salimah, Saudagar, Pumbaya.
Okay, thank you so much, my dear, for your invitation and of course your organization. So to begin with, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wabihi nasta'in wa alayhi natawakkal. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And good morning to all of you. Alhamdulillah po, I am here today to discuss with you the concept of Islam about peace. No? So when we talk about peace, sobrang napakalawak ito na usapin. Pero inshallah, syempre ang i-discuss ko sa inyo is ano yung peace sa Islam at ano yung pinagbabasihan natin. This is only the Holy Quran and the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. May the peace and blessings be upon him. So anyhow, mga anak, pag sinabi natin peace, I think this is what everyone want to attain, di ba? Whether you are a Muslim or non-Muslim, whether you are a Catholic or a Protestant or a Jew or a Buddhist, no? Wala sigurong tao na ayaw niyang ma-achieve itong peace na ito. And in Islam, mga anak, bago tayo maging peace-loving people, bago tayo maging peace giver, di ba? Kailangan muna nating masigurado na tayo mismo individually, no? We are peace-loving people, right? So sa chapter 49, or we call it Surah Al-Hujurat, the chapters of Hujurat, sinabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, sa Surah Al-Hujurat na first, ang isang mananampalataya, ang sabi niya, oh, you who believe, if evildoers come to you with some news, then you need to verify. Right? So this is the beginning of peace. No? Kasi alam nating lahat na gusto mo ng kapayapaan, gusto niya ng kapayapaan, ang kapitbahay mo, ang kaklase mo, ang colleagues mo, katrabaho mo, lahat tayo gusto natin ng kapayapaan, pero may mga tao na ayaw niya ng kapayapaan. Right? So gusto niyang pag-awayin yung dalawa. Yung dalawang magkaibigan, dalawang magkapatid, mag-asawa, magkapitbahay, magkamag-anak, at syempre, magkaiba ng bayan. So automatically, ang sabi ng Allah, He addressed His word to the believing men and women. When He said, oh believers, if evil come to you, then automatically, you should verify or investigate. Wag maniwala muna ang mga news na ito. Otherwise, baka hindi mo without your unintentionally, you bring harm to other people, right? And then pangalawa, sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if two parties among you fall into mutual misunderstanding, then as a believing men and women, you should make peace. Subhanallah. Isipin mo yung atakulakan. Sabi ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kahit ang masasaktan kapag magre-reconcile ka sa dalawang tao na may mutual fall into a mutual understanding, automatically kailangan mong maging makatotohanan. Right? You should be just and fair between the two parties. Kahit na ito, for example, yung kaibigan mo, ay ang best friend mo yung nasasakdal, at non-Muslim yung, ka-argument niya, if you are true believing men and women, kung totoong Muslim ka, then you should deal with the two with justice and fair. Because indeed, Allah, God love justice and fair. So, ibig sabihin, no, hindi natin may iwasan na may konting problema. Hindi natin may iwasan na may misunderstanding. Under sa grupo, may misunderstanding sa organization, may misunderstanding sa loob ng pamilya. As a believing men and women, your responsibility is to video kanina. There is no peace without justice, and it is really true. In Islam, there is no peace without justice, and there is no justice without mercy. Subhanallah. So, ibig sabihin mga takulakan, kung gusto natin na magkaroon ng tunay na kapayapaan mula sa mga Catholic or priest or the ulama or the Muslims and the non-Muslim, the Christians or the non-Christian community, kailangan nating maging just and fair sa kanila. Right? Pero ang tanong ko, being an individual Muslim, papaano ka magiging just sa ibang tao kung ikaw mismo wala kang justice sa sarili mo? Di ba? Papaano ka magbibigay ng peace sa ibang tao kung mismo ikaw wala kang inner peace? Right? So, kaya naman ang Islam, he forbid to the believing men and women na magkaroon ng inggit sa kanyang puso, magkaroon ng ano ba to, ng jealousy sa kanyang puso, alisin yung greed sa kanyang puso, dahil ang greed na nararamdaman ng bawat isang tao, ito ang dahilan kung bakit nawawala yung peace na gusto natin ibigay. Diba? Nawawala yung kapayapaan sa bawat isa sa atin because of this greed na nararamdaman ng isang tao. At ang sabi ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is two wolves of his ummah, of his nation. And bakit niya ginamit is wolf, no? Ang similitude ng ginamit ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is wolf. At hindi niya ginamit yung lion. Right? Dahil ang lion, naturally, pag busog siya, tumitigil siyang kumain. Pag busog siya, tumitigil siyang kumain. But the wolf, no, ang natural instinct ng wolf, kahit na busog siya, ang pakiramdam niya, hindi pa siya busog. So ang ginamit ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the biggest problem of his people, both Muslim and non-Muslim, both believing men and women, is the greed. Right? The greediness of each and every one of us. Itong evil na napapaloob sa atin, ito yung sabi ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the two wolves of his nation is the greediness of money and the greediness of power. So nakikita natin ito mga anak. Right? Gusto mo maging peace-loving people, but because of this greediness, it's like you are like a wolf na kahit na mayroon ka na, kahit na kumpleto ka na, kahit ang dami-dami ng pera mo, pero kailangan mo pang pumatay ng tao para sa petroleum ng ibang bayan. Right? Kailangan mo pang saktan ang kapwa mo para lang manalo ka sa mayor. Diba? Kailangan mong manakit ng kapatid mo para lang manalo ka sa barangay chairman. Can you see the greediness of the humanity? So whether you are a Muslim or you are not a Muslim, the greediness is the main source of that really create chaos in the society. Subhanallah. So ang sabi ng Prophet, ang sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sa chapter Hujurat, automatically when you if you are a believer, then you should reconcile the two, right? With peace and justice, diba? With fair, kahit ito ay labag pa sa kalooban mo, kahit ang masasaktan ay kapatid mo, asawa mo, anak mo, kahit Muslim laban sa Kristiyano, kung tunay ka mananampalataya, kahit ang may kasalanan yung Muslim, na magiging just ka doon sa mga kapatid natin ng mga non-Muslim. That is if you are a true believing man and women, right? We are discussing here the concept of peace in Islam. So, ganito siya makatotohanan. Kasi, ang nagiging problema natin ay kapag wala tayong justice out of greediness, right? Then automatically, magkakaproblema talaga ang pamilya mo, magkakaproblema ang opisina mo, magkakaproblema ang community mo, magkakaproblema ang buong mundo. Only because of one individual who are not just and not fair, only because of the greediness na nararamdaman niya. Then sabi ng Allah SWT to continue the golden rules of peace in Islam. Then sabi niya, O believers, let not men laugh at another man, who may perhaps be better than you. Usually, sometimes, kapag lumalaki ka, lumalaki ang posisyon mo, lumalaki ang knowledge na na-acquire mo, lumalaki ang kayamanan na nakukuha mo, one of the biggest problems of the humanity is yung nagkakaroon tayo ng ego. Nagkakaroon tayo ng pride. We feel this arrogance. So we are belittling the people. So the moment at akulayakan na ang isang Muslim ay binigyan ng Allah ng biyaya at ipinagmalaki niya ito, and then it causes him to love another man only because he feel that he is better than that person, then automatically sabi ng Allah, anong sinabi ng God? Do not laugh, man, at another man. Perhaps that man na pinagkatawanan mo is better than you. And then may kadugtong pa. Nor a woman, no? Let no women laugh at another woman. Perhaps that person na pinagkatawanan mo is better than herself. Subhanallah, imagine mo yan. So tayong mga babae, di ba? Meron tayong ugali na paano hindi magkakaproblema sa opisina? Paano hindi magkakaproblema sa school? Paano hindi magkakaproblema sa loob ng bahay natin? Kapag binibiyayaan tayo ng Allah, sobrang ang laki ng tingin natin sa ating mga sarili. And then we are belittling the people. And Allah tells us that do not laugh another woman. Diba? Only because you feel that you're so good than that person. because perhaps that person is better than yourself. Then sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not defame another. Subhanallah. In a sarcastic manner. Diba? Minsan, sa sobrang galit mo, sobrang minamaliit natin yung ibang tao. So kung ganito yung ugali natin sa bahay, ugali natin sa asawa natin, ugali natin sa community natin, then do you think that there is a peace? Kung saan ka man napapaloob na pamilya? Do you think na may peace kung saan ka mang opisina na nagtatrabaho o university na nagtatrabaho? There is no peace, my dear. Right? So, sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, never ever defame another person through sarcastic manner. Next, atakuliakan, do not call one another by offensive nickname. See? Kasi dito nag-uumpisa yung chaos eh. Diba? Yung pagtatawanan mo yung isang tao and then kung ano-ano itatawag mo sa kanya. Subhanallah. And then followed by, anong sinabi ng Allah? Avoid, oh you who believe, avoid immoderate suspicious. For in some cases, suspicious is a sin. Diba? So the moment na malaki ang tingin mo sa sarili mo and then nakita mo na may mas maganda kaysa sa'yo, mas magaling kaysa sa'yo, mas tumataas ang posisyon kaysa sa'yo, mas yumayaman, mas malaki ang biyaya ng Allah kaysa sa'yo, then pwedeng magkaroon ka ng sospecha. At ang mga sospecha na ito na napakadami na evil na ilalagay niya sa isipan mo at sa puso mo, na pwedeng maging dahilan para mag-spy ka. And then if you spy to another people's affair, then automatically you will be a backbiter. You will slander that person. So sabi ng Allah, oh you who believe, avoid spying, avoid suspicious, avoid these things, otherwise it will lead you to backbiting. It will lead you to slander some other person, right? So these are the individual way of Islam to maintain the peace, peaceful life towards you and your family, towards you and your colleagues, towards you and your friends and your community. Collectively, mga anak, collectively, if there is no individual peaceful people, then it's very, very hard for us to attain the goal of this webinar. Very, very hard. So ibig sabihin, kung ikaw ay pinili ng organizer na ito para magturo ng peace, hindi lang sa Mindanao, di ba? Hindi lang sa pamilya mo, hindi lang sa community mo, kung hindi sa buong mundo. The easiest way for us to attain to be the peace giver is kailangan magkaroon muna tayo ng inner peace within us, di ba? Kung ang puso mo ay punong-puno ng greed, kung ang puso mo ay punong-puno ng yabang, kung ang puso mo ay punong-puno ng jealousy, then I think it's very, very hard for you to attain the goal of this webinar. So, kailangan natin i-purify ang ating mga sarili as a believing men and women. Again, I am discussing to you the concept of Islam to attain peace individually and collectively. The starting point, mga kapatid, is to attain the inner peace within us, diba? Because when we are peace-loving people and we have this peace inside of us, then automatically magkakaroon ng kapayapaan ng buhay mo, magkakaroon ng kapayapaan ng pamilya mo, magkakaroon ng kapayapaan ng community mo, magkakaroon ng kapayapaan yung mga estudyante mo, at lalong magkakaroon ng kapayapaan ng buong mundo. At maaaring ikaw na isang babae ang maging dahilan para sa pagbibigay ng kapayapaan dito sa Marawi City, dito sa Mindanao, and hoping na ikaw ang maging dahilan para sa pagbabago ng tunay na kapayapaan na inaatin-atin ng lahat ng relihiyon sa mundong ito. Kristiyano ka man, Protestant ka man, Hudyo ka man, Muslim ka man, Islam nor other religion teaches violence and extremism. Diba? Lahat ng religion ay nagtuturo ng kapayapaan. At ang dahilan kung bakit may relihiyon ay para iating natin yung kapayapaan. And this is the concept of Islam. To conclude, mga anak, ang sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sa Surah Al-Hujurat, "O you who believe, verily we created you from a single male and a single woman, single male and female." So meaning, God created us from Adam and from Eve. And from that two person, nanganak at tayo ngayon to. So meaning mga kapatid, we are brothers actually. We might not be brothers in faith kasi magkaiba tayo ng religion. But the reality ay iisa lang ang pinagalingan natin. Ikaw man ay Amerikano, Arabo ka man, Pilipino ka man o Chinese, iisa lang ang ating pinagalingan. Ito ay ang iisang tao, ang unang lalaki na nilikha ng Allah, si Prophet Adam alayhi salam, at ang nanay natin, si Eve alayhi salam. We are created from this, mula sa isang lalaki at isang babae na ito. May the peace and blessings be upon them all. And at the same time, sinabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from them, nanggaling sa kanila yung tribes, nanggaling sa kanila yung nation, and then sinabi ng Allah, verily, all of you are the same in the sight of God, except what? Except in piety, in righteousness. So, walang pagkakaiba ang bawat isa sa atin. Diba? Anuman ang lahi mo, anuman ang nation mo, anuman ang tribu mo, Maranao ka man o Maguindanao, Tagalog ka man o Bisaya, we are the same in the sight of God, and the most noble to us in the sight of God are not the doctors, not the millionaires, not the slave, but whoever the righteous among us, siya ang pinaka-noble sa paningin ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ang gusto ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to despise each other, but to respect one another, and to be that kind of person, to be that kind of believing men and women, then automatically mga kapatid, kailangan umpisa pa lang magkaroon tayo ng inner peace. And then kung may darating na chismosa, kung may darating na may daladalang news, kung may darating na chismis mula sa pamilya mo, mula sa opisina mo, mula sa institusyon na pinagtatrabahuan mo, then never ever trust that person, verify, investigate, and then after you investigate, kapag nagkaroon ng problema, always reconcile the two person, and when you reconcile the two person, then reconcile with them with peace and justice. And that way at Akulakan, kung tayo ay mga Muslim na naniniwala sa justice at sa pagiging patas, no? Then automatically the peace is very easy to attain. Right? So, yan lang po yung aking masasabi. Naway nagkaroon ng naintindihan ninyo kung ano yung konsepto ng Islam sa peace. Walillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Aleema, Salimah Pumbaya, for your very interesting message and sharing, of course, the Islam concept of peace. You made your example very relevant to each of us, although very personal, but very relevant to our individual needs. So peace is really a universal concept. No matter what religion we belong to, we all long for peace. So I'd like to read Martin Luther's message about peace. He said, if we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, and our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective. So I believe this is what Ma'am Aleema has shared to us. Okay, so I believe we are now ready for a question and answer. So our speaker is now ready to answer questions if there are. And I'd like to ask the help of Mr. John Badawi, Sir John, and Mr. Juvar Pantao for facilitation of the questions from our participants.
Hi. Hello mga friends. John and Juvar.
Hello, Ate Jana.
Hi. Kalinaw, Mindanao.
Jana, are you there? I think there's a question here. May pinapatanong ang isang peace educator. I think this is more of the dialogue. This is addressed to Ate Ching. How can we, as peace educators, how can we effectively facilitate dialogue in the classroom? Or if you can give tips on how dialogue can be facilitated effectively in the peace education class?
All right. That's a very good question, because basically that is the kind of process that we're doing with the Mindanao Tripartite Youth Corps as inspired by the Bishops Ulama Conference. First thing first, as peace educators, if you have a class of 40, you have to know the profile of your students. So what's their faith affiliation, their cultural background, their gender, of course, you need to find out, because it matters, especially when you have to be in dialogue. And if it's really some, like I understand that classes have themes, no, have thematic lessons. The most important in physical setting, you have to bring your students into a circle. I understand that we have classroom setting, no, we have like 40 chairs in front of a teachers. But the peace education class must look differently physically. Aside that, your classroom must be ready for an open space, and it has a quick it should be welcoming for everybody to join in the platform of sharing. You also have to make sure, no, especially among schools that are sectarian schools, you have to make sure that inside your classroom it has to have its own equal footing. So there must be no signs of one religion that would dominate the others, or that would probably bring in tensions. So that's one, you have to check the profile of your students. Second is you have to prepare the physical setup when you engage into dialogue. One principle in the physical setup is bring them into a circle. So literally in a circle. I mean, you can put chairs, or you can even disregard chairs, or bring mats if you can do it. I am not sure for how many minutes do you have in your classes. If you have 40 minutes or an hour to do that one, I guess it's really very, it's a good potential to be ready physically as well. You as a teacher, you must know as well where to bring yourself in a circle. No, if you wanted serve as a facilitator and observer, but if you wanted to empower also students to get into the process, like you have Muslim representative, you have Protestant representative, you have Catholic representative, or even other faith that are present, really present in your classroom, you have to acknowledge and recognize the presence of everyone. I know that the classroom setting is a regular setup, but I guess it's also very nice for the teachers to be creative, even to expose your students in an irregular activities. I mean, outside your classrooms, you can bring them to an exposure. You can allow. I'm sure Javar knew about this one, and even John Badawi. If you can bring your students to an exchange, no, like interreligious exchange, like Catholic may have to visit masjid, or even Muslims visit Catholic cathedrals or even chapels or churches, so that they have their own basic understanding about each other's faith. So that would be quite manageable, and something that you can actually start off when you wanted to engage in that. In a deeper sense, there's another challenge for you. One is to know deeply the theology and the doctrines. You as a teacher, you must have an edge of information of the doctrines and dogma of each present faith traditions in the classroom.
Thank you for that,
Thank
Ate
you so
Jean. I think
Yes.
Jan also has gathered some
Question.
questions.
Hello.
Okay,
Yep.
Jan.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes,
Hello. Thank you so much,
John, loud
Miss.
and clear.
Hello, Ate Jana. Thank you so
Hi,
much. And
John.
Miss Ali. So the next question was actually privately chatted to us. And this one naman is for Kaka Sally. So I think one of the important highlights na sinabi ni Kaka Sally is really cultivating inner peace. So the question is, what are some strategies or specific activities that you can suggest to our peace educators that they can bring into their classroom to nurture inner peace po?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jan. Siguro ang pinaka for me, very effective is na activity na gagawin natin. Gagawin ninyo bilang professor who will teach this kind of curriculum is siguro gamitin natin kung ano yung visible na dapat natin gamitin. For example, sabi nga ni Ma'am Jana, nandyan yung estudyante na Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, di ba? Or from different tribes, right? Kahit dito lang sa bayan natin, iba't ibang tribo, iba't ibang relihiyon.
Tama.
So, ang may suggest ko is, lagi natin i-awaken yung, ano ba to? Yung mind and heart ng mga bata. For example, like, okay, students, tingnan niyo yung kamay ko. Diba? Sarili ko itong mga daliri. Right? So, sarili kong daliri magkakaiba ng haba. Subhanallah. Pero sarili ko itong daliri. So, ibig sabihin, God created us differently. Right? From different religion, from different races, colors, and nation, not to despise each other, but to help one another. Kasi kahit gaano kagaling itong apat na ito, dahil matatangkad sila, may magagawa ang ating thumb na hindi kaya gawin ng ating maliit na daliri. Right? So, the same time, pwede rin natin gamitin, okay, tayong mga Pilipino, patayuin yung mga estudyante sa harapan, di ba? Ang lahi natin ay Pilipino, Maharlikans, bakit magkakaiba tayo ng kulay? Ganun din yung magkakapatid. Iisa lang ang tatay mo, iisa lang ang nanay mo, pero nang lumabas tayo, magkakaiba tayo. So, bakit? Because this is one of the power of God. He created us differently, with different colors and abilities, but not to kill each other, or to fight one another, or to despise one another. But one of the purpose is to help one another, kasi otherwise, what's the sense na doktor ka, kailangan mo pa rin yung janitor. Yung janitor, kahit nag-ano siya, kapagod, kailangan niya ng isang mayaman na tutulong sa kanya. Yung napakayaman, kahit na super yaman niya, binunari pa siya, kailangan pa rin niya ng isang yaya na tutulong sa kanya. So meaning, sabi ng Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no Arabs, there is no superiority of an Arab and non-Arab, or to a white towards the black, di ba? We are the same in the sight of God. So I think yun lang dyan yung masasabi ko na pwedeng mga gumawa, kumbaga gamitin na yung mga ganong activity nang sa ganon ay ma-realize ng mga estudyante natin na hindi pala ako pwedeng magmataas, kung ako ay matalino, kung ako ay maganda, hindi ko dapat ipagyabang, at kung ako man ay mahina, kailangan ko lang pala i-discover ko yung sarili ko, hindi ako dapat mainggit, hindi ko kailangan ikumpara ang sarili ko sa mga matatalino kasi mayroon din akong sariling skills. I just need to discover my skills and my talent that God given to me before I was created. So yun lang dyan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That is so beautiful, no? Like the metaphor of the hands, like I think it reminds us that we are the same but at the same time different, and it also reminds us to be humble. So that's so nice. I hope our teachers can bring that to their classroom. And I know may mga iba pang strategies na pwedeng delphin. And I know also that sa mga video materials nyo po, bilang isa kayo sa mga sikat dito, they can always refer to your talks. Maybe they can get some strategies also. So with that, thank you so much for being here, Ms. Kaka and Ma'am Ate Jana. Ma'am Sandy, are you here?
Yes, Sir Jan. Are there more questions?
Yes. Let's see ha. Baka may gusto mismo magsalita, no? Kasi wala na chat sa amin. But yep, if there are more questions,
I think there's a question from Ma'am Yasmira.
Yep. Somebody's raising hands. Si Ma'am Yash pala. Hello, Ma'am Yash. Go ahead po.
Ayan. Sorry. Mamaya na, kasi mahina yung net ko ngayon kasi I'm using my data kasi brand out dito sa lugar namin. But anyway, I would like to congratulate the two amazing speakers, si Ate Jana and Kaka for that very inspiring and very inspiring presentation and discussion on building peace from within. As a peace practitioner and champions of peace building, I would like to ask the two women speakers on what are their practical tips on how we can maximize the use of online media, not just Facebook, for example, but online media including digital technology, in trying to bring together various groups who are polarized by politics. Like we know now how deeply polarized our youth is, for example, because of the current political climate. So bilang mga peace educators na magsisilbi tayong bridge, no, in trying to provide that space, how do we, what are the practical tips po kay Ate Jana and Kakasali na, like, we acknowledge the cultural differences because there's beauty in diversity, but at the same time we are also, how do we, the how to of bringing about the appreciation of diversity and converging into a common goal of addressing conflicts in our society through peace and non-violence. Salamat po.
Ma'am Sally, would you like to go
Ate
first?
Jana?
Mauna na po
Sorry,
kayo, Ma'am Jana.
All right. So, sa karanasan, for example, ang pinaka gamit talaga is blasting ng SMS, no? Like using text messaging to really parang inviting people to do major participation in whatever advocacies that we do. That's practically something that we really have, we don't have to miss, no. Text blasting is very powerful as well in many cases, especially right now, this time of COVID, no, we have actually different like varied kind of platform that we can actually choose. No, even the school, the DepEd has introduced a lot of e-learning platforms for students to really maximize this one. The MTYC has launched a virtual platform over Facebook via Zoom. So we also maximize that one, including YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and also some other platforms on like blog sites and like Tumblr. You can also make use of that. For students, for millennials, they are very much adept to it, no? Like how they'll be able to maneuver into maximize this one. But adults, let's say 50 and above, no, for those who are interested, they can still be, be invited in the process, wherein they can take part in many advocacies in some of our endeavors to impact in the society and be more creative in response to whatever advocacy in changing and doing positive, in making change and doing positivism. So I guess for teachers, the two things that you probably have to do, one is to learn the media and literacy skills. So there's like, you have to understand that we cannot actually go back to the usual. The time right now is an opportunity for us to learn, because there is a great masses, the digital citizens that we can actually invite. And at some point, it has actually brought presidents in a governance, or even put leaders in the Senate or Congress, because of the digital platform. Ang mga panawagan using Facebook, using Instagram, and even YouTube is very much effective to maximize. So first thing first, learn the media and literacy, technology. The second is to, keep learning and studying the substance of our advocacies. So if you're into peace building, good governance, like having that one, bring the substance into your own posting, into your own publication materials, into your own shout outs, and be consistent in doing it for people to follow, for people to get on board, for people to join you in your causes. And for me, it has become very much effective for people somehow to take part. And it has been tested and really tried in the processes that we do with Mindanao Tripartite Youth Work. So thank you so much. God bless for all of us.
Yes, Okay, so thank you, Ma'am Jana. I think sa mga kabataan, of course, including our professor, dapat ang unang gagawin natin, especially the Muslims, no, as a Muslim, you should be very responsible kung sino yung dapat na pinapakinggan mo, di ba? Siguraduhin mo na yung pina-follow mo ay makatotohanan. Hindi porke maraming likes, hindi porke maraming comment, hindi porke sikat, pinapaniwalaan mo. May kasabihan nga na repeated lies, nagiging makatotohanan. Kahit na ito ay hindi totoo, nagiging makatotohanan kapag paulit-ulit na pinapakinggan. So, we should be very responsible as a student, as a youth, as a professor, na dapat yung pinapakinggan natin truthful. Talagang valid yung mga information na pinapakinggan natin. Kasi yung lagi natin pinapakinggan, especially the students, talagang may impact yun sa brain. Right? Pangalawa, yung kanilang sinabi ko sa chapter ng Hujurat, ng Holy Quran, we should always investigate and verify everything. Diba? Kailangan ascertain tayo sa pinapakinggan natin. Totoo ba talaga to? Kasi for example, may mga, sa social media, may mga gawa-gawa, for example, na mga picture na pinagdugtong-dugtong, tapos sasabihin, million-million pinatay doon sa China. So tayo naman ng mga Muslim, nagiging emotional tayo, di ba? Tapos biglang, parang nagagalit ka, di ba? So avoid being very emotional. Otherwise, it will really create chaos in you. So being a Muslim, you should be very responsible and always investigate and ascertain whatever yung pinapakinggan mo. Pangatlo is, bilang isang Muslim, kailangan talaga very wise ka eh. Huwag ka magpalinlang. Right? Wag ka magpapalinlang. So siguro mahirap siyang gawin, no, mahirap gawin kasi ngayon ang social media, mapanlinlang ang mga tao, di ba? For example, mag-asawa, nag-post, masaya sila, yung pala, kagabi, nagpatayan sila, di ba? Bagong car, yung pala, nag-post lang ng bagong car kasi para lang masabi sa mga kagrupo niya na masaya ko kasi mayroon akong car na binili, pero yung pala, depressed, gusto magpakamatay. So, wag tayong magpalinlang sa lahat na nakikita natin sa Facebook because yung isa narinig ko na lecture, 90% of the Facebook and social media are all lies. Right? So being a Muslim, especially when you are students, when you are a professor, be very responsible dun sa mga pinapakinggan mo kasi talagang may impact yan sa brain natin, di ba? So in that way, mamimaintain natin yung peace na gusto mo at gusto natin. So yun lang po. Thank you so much.
Alright, maraming salamat kakasali. I'd like to gusto ko yung yung mga statements on that we really have to be good Muslims whenever we promote peace. I think the peace educators has catched that it's not only for Muslims but also for others who are believing in other faiths. But I'd like to read muna yung there's a message coming from Ma'am Bobet of MSU General Santos. Ang message na dito, wow, thank you Miss Jana and Ma'am Salimah for such a great and insightful sharing on peace, interfaith, interethnic dialogues, and peace concepts in Islam. In MSU Gensan, we have had interfaith conversations for our peace students where we invite a priest, an imam, or Muslim scholar, and a Protestant minister. Both peace ed teachers and students appreciate it, and this session this morning is greatly providing us tips to further substantiate our classroom sharing and discussion on peace and religion being one of the challenging topics in our FPE101 course contents. Thank you very much to both of you, Ma'am Jan and Ma'am Salimah. And then there's an affirmation also from Ma'am Yasmira. She agrees that being adept to various media platforms is essential in the new norm of doing peace building. So thank you, Ate Jana, for sharing that. And thank you, Kaka Sally, for emphasizing that the messenger is the message. Jan, meron pang mga tanong?
Doc, I have a question, comment.
All right.
Si Sir Neil.
Ay, si Sir Neil. I think Attorney Neil has something to
Grabe,
to
hindi
share.
nakababa ang hands raised even before pa.
Thank you, Jan.
Sir Neil.
Yeah, so as for bringing some uplifting stories experiencing COVID-19, but I'd like to emphasize what I've been teaching for like so many years already, but I admire actually the work of Kaka Sally this is one thing that I think is very important. Two things. One is that according to some authors, cultural is local. There's a survey conducted also not too long ago by international organizations. And students were asked about who would be your trusted source of information. They say religious leaders, teachers, and the like. Aleema. So what's the importance of that? I think, you know, I think teaching peace education, if we use social media, I think based on that survey and that other statement, that culture is local, is that we should need people, speakers who can empathize, who can make connection, who can relate to the audience, who can connect their ethnicity, who can speak the language of the students. Like I've been following like the YouTube Kaka. I admire that kind of things, very pragmatic, commonsensical. And that's precisely the reason why so many people follow Kakasali's YouTube, because of her inspiring stories that deal directly on the practical side of it. And most of our students have limited means, and they can relate more about the practical side of life as they experience conflict in Mindanao. So maybe with the use of social media, maybe bringing in inspiring stories like Kakasali's story about, you know, how to deal with other religion and how to work with other religion, and emphasizing about the pragmatic way, the commonsensical way of dealing things. Because most of the time when we use cerebral, very intellectual discussion, they tend to discourage students to participate because one, you know, it's a subject that, while we understand, is difficult really to, you know, engage with, given the terms and the like. But if we have a speaker who can complement on the subject and he can provide a very basic understanding and unpack it so that it could be properly understood by everyone, I think, you know, it helps a lot. Like I like Kakasali's YouTube's inspirational messages and the like. And thank you for bringing her in, and also Jana for complementing and supplementing, you know, discussions about peace through interfaith dialogue. Thank you, Dr. Jawar.
Thank you, Attorney Neil. Jan, meron pang isang tanong. I think there's one more question.
Yes,
Jan,
one last
last
question.
question.
Thank you. Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Sir Neil. Just one last question from our colleagues from MSU Maguindanao. Sabi niya dito, when we talk of religion, we talk also of the different tribes. And we know that MSU is a tri-people institution, and there are instances where IP students do not want to be labeled as IPs, maybe because of the fear of stereotyping and bullying, which is sad but so true. So the question is, any effective and practical tips to handle such situations? This is to encourage a more diverse learning environment in our classes, sana. So that was the question for both, actually.
All right. In the University of Mindanao in Davao, we are accompanying a group of IP students. They are actually IP scholars in the University of Mindanao. The teachers inside the structure is one, for example, the school must be ready to and acknowledge the ethnicity, the different ethnic groups within the classroom. So they have to provide platforms for them. So they must have activities in any school or university-wide activities. There must be an open space for the indigenous peoples, so that they will be, they will be introduced to the entire student tree or to the entire school. It is also very nice to empower them. But when we do empowerment as teacher, we have to consider ourselves later. But of course, there's also a very good reflection among ourselves, as peace educators. Do we also try to discuss our own biases and prejudices and stereotypes in our own little way? Have we overcome it in our own capacity as teachers before we have to bring ourselves in the classes? Because if you're not settled with your biases and prejudices and stereotype, you yourself should be a messenger, could probably distract the process of peace education. So that might be quite very challenging. And I guess any school, you provide some kind of pedagogy about it, or probably processes wherein teachers would have to have their relearning and unlearning processes. That's one, is you provide platform. Second is when you have the kind of engagement with the IPs, make sure that you're able to immerse yourself of who they are, because recognizing and appreciating them must be sincere enough, not just because it's part that you acknowledge their presence, but you also acknowledge of who they are, meaning their practices, their traditions, their culture, their ways of doing, their language. No, that's why in our own practices, if we wanted to engage ourselves with peace building, we have to immerse ourselves in different local communities with cultural traditions and faith practices before we have to say that we know this person or we know this kind of tribal community. So so for us, it's like, you know, try to bring in yourself into the midst and learn and unlearn the processes in your own ways of handling. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ate Jana. Ma'am Sally, nakamute ka po.
Yeah, so, Ma'am Jana, it's okay na konting ano lang, sisingit lang ako ng konti. Yeah, Jan, actually, yung mga problema natin sa school, sa bahay, yung mga bullying, di ba? It's parang dati sa mga bata lang, tapos sobrang nakakaloka na kung kailan lumalaki yung mga tao, talagang yung bullying sa school, sa college, sobrang makatotohanan. So I think the root problem of this is from the beginning itself, when God created Satan and He created them. So automatically, alam natin lahat how God honored the humanity, diba? Sila yung ginawang vicegerents on earth. And then Satan really reacted it's like, oh my God, diba? Why Adam should be the vicegerents on earth? Like, ako, nilikha mo ako from a smokeless fire, and Adan was created from a dust, di ba? So, different, automatically, I am better than him. So, meaning, John, itong problema ng mga tao, no, na bullying, superiority, jealousy, di ba? It's like, no equality at all, no justice at all, no mercy. Kaya walang peace sa buhay natin, di ba? So, I think the main solution is, let's go back again to Islam and the equality, the equality of humanity, whether you are a white or a black or rich or poor, automatically we are the same in the sight of God. And at the same time, I think as a Muslim, ilagay natin yung empathy, right? Yung empathy yun na nawawala. Ilagay natin yung shoe natin doon sa sapatos ng taong minamaliit natin. Like for example, kami ng mga Maranao, we have this problem of like, we really look ourselves as parang Maranao ako, di ba? Para may meaning talaga siya eh. Maranao ako, bakit, di ba? So, it's like, pag Maguindanao, parang ang taas ng tingin namin sa mga sarili namin. Wala utubila, wala for me. But this is the reality. And I think to solve this problem is, as a professor, we should, magkaroon tayo ng very good relationship with our students, especially yung mga indigenous, yung mga medyo mababa yung ethnicity, di ba? We should look at them with love and respect, appreciate them, kahit hindi kailangan i-appreciate, bigyan sila ng attention, and I think everything will be very, very okay kung ang isang professor na magtuturo dito talaga ay titingnan yung mga estudyante ng pantay-pantay na may pagmamahal, di ba? At may empathy about isa, then I think mawawala itong satanic whisper na superiority and so on and so forth. So I really congratulate all the professors who will teach this peace education sa mga university, especially sa MSU, kasi napakalaki ng rule niyo mga anak, no? Kasi pag ito talaga, with the mercy of God, binigyan kayo ng taufik, then just imagine kung paano nyo babaguhin yung mga Pilipino mag-work as a one without tribes, because we are all Filipino and we should really love one another and love our country. Otherwise, sa Pilipinas. So I really congratulate all the professors na mag-tuition kasi napakalaki ng role nyo. And may Allah guides you and bless you along the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kaka Sally. No, I like that word, no, empathy. And also you mentioned about appreciation. I also like yung sinabi ni Ate Jana na parang as peace educators, we also have to step back and reflect on our own biases and prejudices that maybe we could be bringing into our classroom. So thank you for the both of you. Beautiful, beautiful. I know that I learned a lot. So with that, I would like to turn over the spotlight to Ma'am Sandy for the next part of our programs. Thank you so much sa inyo. Ma'am Sandy, please take over.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. Jabbar Pantao, for helping me out in this question and answer portion. So, again, thank you for that heart and mind-provoking and insightful question and answer and sharing from both our participants and speakers this morning. We would like to express our enormous gratitude to our two wonderful speakers today, Kaka Sally and Miss Jana, for sharing their inspiring and relevant thoughts to us. Before we give the time to Dr. Jabbar Pantao for the closing remarks, let me read first the certificates for our speakers today. So this certificate of appreciation is given to Aleema Salimah Pumbaya for sharing her valuable time and expertise as a guest speaker on the topic Peace Concepts in Islam in webinar 3 of Peace Education, Reimagining FPE101 in the MSU system on June 26, 2021. The 3-part webinar series provides continuing peace education for curriculum experts from the 11 Mindanao State University campuses. Signed, Edrelyn C. Manla, Project Manager, Peace Education Project. Signed, Dina Lewis, Cultural Affairs Officer, U.S. Embassy in the Philippines. And the same certificate is given to Ms. Jana Jean D. Dacobor. So again, thank you very much for gracing this webinar today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so to the organizers of this webinar led by Dr. Manla, Sir Neil of the U.S. Embassy Manila, peace educators and participants from different campuses of Mindanao State University, thank you for indulging. Thank you for joining us until this last leg of Peace Education webinar. Thank you very much. Your presence is a manifestation of your commitment and of course your contribution for world peace. So we may call again Dr. Jabbar Pantao for the closing remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So for the past 3 weeks, we attended different webinars on peace education. This is about reimagining fundamentals of peace education 101 in the MSU system. And we designed this for the FPE101 educators to increase their knowledge and skills so that they can improve the practice that they have in the fundamentals or the fundamentals of peace education classes. So during the first week, Sir Mayong and I shared about andragogy and of course assessment strategies and fundamentals of peace education. We shared about the best practices that we have had in implementation of FPE 101 in the classes. Then last week, we actually learned a lot about the context of conflict, the intermittent and sporadic conflict in the now, and of course about the ways by which we can resolve peacefully the different conflicts that people in Mindanao are encountering. And we actually are thinking of peace education or the FPE 101 as a pathway for us to be able to make our students understand what's going on in Mindanao and of course how do we resolve it in our little ways by simply making these students improve their critical thinking, improve the way they look at the situations that we have. Kasi the data that were presented by Attorney Neil was very much, very much significant as we try to think of solutions to the problems that we have. Jan Badawi shared about conflict resolution approaches. I think that was a refresher for everyone, but it was actually contextualized so that we can bring in the realities that we are experiencing in the Mindanao communities. So in FPE, we understand that it's not about what we read, but it's about bringing the context of the realities that the people in Mindanao are facing. And lastly, today we had a very good discussion, just finished our very good dialogue, interfaith. We also learned about how do we bring in the discussions of religion in our peace education classes, especially that our students are coming from different faith. And we have to remember that even though they are coming from different faiths, we really have to look at the peace values that the religion is teaching us. We are supposed to be thinking of what are common to us in terms of faith, because I believe that all religions are teaching about peace. So we actually maximize those teachings of peace from different religions so that we can bring in teachings to our students that can probably reduce, if not eliminate, the long-standing stereotypes, biases, and prejudices that we have, which can be explained by our experience. So with that, thank you so much to the core team. Thank you so much to the U.S. Embassy. Thank you to the Peace Education Committee for the support. The MSU System Administration for allowing all the peace educators to be joining us. We'd also like to acknowledge campuses who are outside MSU system. We have Notre Dame of Bolo. There are participants from, I think, Luzon universities and other Mindanao universities. Thank you so much for your participation. And of course, to U.S. Embassy for the continued support to Mindanao State University in advancing the cause of fundamentals of peace education, as we all know that MSU system is mandated to be a social laboratory for coexistence, and peace education is one of those that we can do to realize our mandate. So with that, maraming salamat sa mga participants from different MSU campuses. Thank you for everyone who supported this undertaking. And I would like to see the Peace Educators community grow, and watch out for our next webinar series that's going to be for new or upcoming FPE101 teachers. So abangan po natin yan. So maraming salamat, sukran, and have a happy weekend, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Javar Pantao, for your message. But before we leave, we will have a photo op first. So kindly open all your cameras for the photo op. And then do not forget to sign or fill out the evaluation, which is posted in the comment section or the chat box of this webinar. So once again, thank you very much. Kindly open all your cameras for the photo op. Yeah. Okay. So are we ready? Okay, Ma'am Jan.